While many people are rushing to write off Alex Eala after a crushing defeat in Stuttgart, there is one person who stands there, believing in her absolutely. That person is Rafael Nadal. Have you ever wondered why a legend with 22 Grand Slam titles would spend his most valuable words on a 20-year-old girl struggling under the weight of a nation? Just a few days ago, the internet was a dark place for Alex. The comments were brutal. People said she peaked too early. They said her ranking was a fluke. They pointed at her loss to Leylah Fernandez as proof that she just does not have what it takes to stay in the top 30. But then, we saw them together in Madrid. Nadal put his hand on her shoulder, looked at the cameras with that unmistakable intensity, and told the world that Alex lights up everything whenever she steps on the court. It was a moment of pure, cinematic contrast. On one side, you have the cold, harsh reality of a professional loss and the gray, unforgiving skies of a tournament that ended too soon. On the other, you have the greatest fighter in tennis history telling us we are all missing something. He is not looking at the scoreboard. He is not looking at the unforced errors or the double faults from that last set. He is looking at something deeper. He is looking at a spirit that he recognizes because he spent his entire life building it. To understand why Nadal sees a light that the rest of the world has gone blind to, we have to go back. We have to rewind 7 years to a time when a 13-year-old girl first stepped onto the red clay of Mallorca with nothing but a racket and a dream that felt far too big for her small frame. At 13, most of us are worried about school projects or who we are sitting with at lunch. But for Alex, 13 was the year she had to choose between the safety of Manila and the lonely, grueling path of a professional in Spain. Imagine leaving everything you know, the food, the humidity of home, your friends, and your comfort. She landed in Mallorca as just another name on a long list of talented students at the Rafa Nadal Academy. She was not a star. She was just a kid in a ponytail trying to prove she belonged in a place where everyone is a prodigy. Those early days were not filled with trophies or headlines. They were filled with sore muscles, the smell of sun-baked clay, and the quiet hum of a dorm room that felt thousands of miles away from her family. This is where the DNA of Nadal started to sink in. It is a philosophy that says, you do not complain, you do not give up, and you find joy in the very struggle that makes everyone else quit. Nadal himself would often watch the courts, quietly observing the next generation. He did not just notice her forehand, though it was lethal even then. He noticed that after a 4-hour practice session in the blistering Mediterranean heat, Alex was still smiling. She had this energy that was impossible to ignore. It was a hunger disguised as a grin. She was working twice as hard as everyone else because she knew the sacrifice her family made to get her there. Her parents were not just sending a child to school, they were investing the hopes of an entire culture into her success. She was not just playing for herself anymore. She was playing for every kid in the Philippines who was told that tennis was a sport for other people, for other countries, or for other bodies. She was carrying the weight of being the first, the only, and the best all at once. Every time she hit a ball, she was fighting against the idea that a girl from Southeast Asia could not dominate a European sport. And as the sun began to set on those long training days in Mallorca, Nadal saw it. He saw the way she would pick up her own balls, the way she would thank the staff, and the way she would walk off the court as if she had just won a Grand Slam even when she was exhausted. That was the moment he realized she was different. Watching someone give up their entire childhood for a dream is a powerful thing, especially when they carry the pride of an entire nation on their shoulders. If you are one of the thousands of people who feel that same pride every time Alex takes the court, then you are part of this journey too. We are tracking every single step of her rise to the top right here, and if you want to make sure you are in the stands with us for the next chapter of this incredible story, you should join this community right now by subscribing so we can keep this energy going together. But as the trophies started to pile up and the rankings began to climb, a new kind of pressure began to form, the kind that could crush even the brightest light. You can feel the weight of 100 million people every time Alex Eala hits a second serve. It is a terrifying burden for a 20-year-old, The loss in Stuttgart was more than just a red number on a screen. It was a moment where the pressure finally seemed to crack the foundation. Social media was not kind. It never is. People who have never picked up a tennis racket in their lives were suddenly experts on her footwork and her mental strength. They said she was too small, too tired, or just not good enough to stay in the elite circle of the top 30. And then came that post. Alex looked into the camera and apologized. She told her fans she was sorry for not being better. She was sorry for failing them. It was a knife to the heart for anyone who has followed her from the beginning. Imagine being at the top of your game, ranked among the best in the world, and feeling like you owe the universe an apology just for being human. The silence in the locker room after a loss like that is the loudest sound in the world. It is a place where every doubt you ever had comes back to haunt you. You start to wonder if the critics are right. You start to wonder if the journey ends here, under the gray, unforgiving skies of a tournament that just did not go your way. Let us look closer at the specific pain of that week in Stuttgart. The clay was fast, and the expectations were even faster. Alex was coming off the high of reaching the top 30, a milestone that made her a global icon in every Filipino household, from Manila to Los Angeles to New York. But that kind of fame is a double-edged sword. When you win, you are a queen who can do no wrong. When you lose, you are a target for every person with a keyboard and an opinion. During that match against Leylah Fernandez, you could see the fatigue in her eyes. It was not just the physical toll of a long season, it was the exhaustion of trying to be a symbol instead of a person. Every time she looked at her coach, she was looking for a solution that simply was not there. The keyboard warriors were waiting like vultures. They called her a one-hit wonder. They said the pressure of the big stage was finally too much for her to handle. That apology she posted was the lowest point of her professional life. She was essentially telling the world that she felt like a failure because she could not satisfy the hunger of a nation for constant victory. That is a heavy, dark place for a young athlete to be. You could see her retreating into herself, wondering if the light she had fought so hard to find was finally starting to dim. But then came Madrid. The city was buzzing with the start of the Madrid Open, and the air was different. This was the territory of the king. And the king was waiting for her. Rafael Nadal did not just give Alex a pep talk, he gave her a new lens to see herself through. He told the entire world that Alex Eala lights up everything she touches. Think about that for a second. He did not talk about her ranking. He did not talk about her backhand or her serve speed. He talked about her light. He saw that her real power is not just winning points, it is the way she makes the sport feel alive. He recognized that Alex is the living, breathing heart of his academy because she embodies the one thing you cannot teach: joy in the face of suffering. I want to stop here and ask you something because this is where the story shifts. Do you think Nadal is right? Is it possible that the energy a player brings to the court is actually more important than the trophies or the rankings in the long run? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below because your perspective helps us understand why we all feel so connected to Alex in the first place. Nadal was sending a message to the world, but more importantly, he was sending a message to Alex herself. He was telling her that she does not need to apologize for being human. He was telling her that her value is not tied to a win-loss record in a single week in Germany. This was the turning point. You could see the shift in her eyes during her first practice session at the Caja Magica. The heaviness from Stuttgart started to melt away like ice in the Spanish sun. She realized that she was not carrying the burden of the Philippines, she was carrying their light. This was the moment the Eala Effect truly began to take hold of Madrid. People were not just showing up to watch tennis. They were showing up to be part of that energy Nadal had described. The training sessions became events of their own. Every time she stepped on the court, the crowd grew larger and louder. The whispers of doubt were replaced by a roar of support that could be heard across the entire complex. She was no longer just a girl who had lost a match. She was a warrior who had found her soul again under the guidance of her mentor. At the Rafa Nadal Academy, they teach you that tennis is a game of millimeters, but life is a game of character. Nadal chose Alex as his example because she does not hide when things get tough. She does not stop smiling when the score is against her. That is what he meant by lighting up everything. It is the ability to walk into a room or onto a stadium court and change the temperature of the air just by being there. He saw a version of himself in her, the relentless spirit that refuses to be broken by a few bad days. As the Madrid Open approached, the tension did not vanish, but it changed. It was no longer the tension of fear. It was the tension of a spring being coiled, ready to release all that stored energy onto the red clay. Alex was not just preparing for a tournament, she was preparing to show everyone that the light Nadal spoke of was real, and it was brighter than it had ever been. The atmosphere in Madrid leading up to the 2026 Open was electric. It was a palpable shift that moved through the city like a heat wave. This was the birth of what sports journalists are now calling the Eala Effect. It is a phenomenon where a tennis match becomes a cultural event. Every time Alex stepped onto a practice court at the Caja Magica, the metal bleachers would fill to capacity within seconds. People were not just there to see a tennis player, they were there to witness the evolution of a hero. You could see the influence of the Rafa Nadal Academy in every gesture and every swing. She was hitting the ball with a new level of controlled violence, a heavy, biting topspin forehand that mirrored the way Nadal himself has dominated these same courts for 2 decades. The technical changes were obvious to anyone who knows the game. After the heartbreaking loss in Stuttgart, Nadal and the coaching staff identified a small but critical flaw in her lateral movement on the clay surface. They spent hours under the hot Spanish sun, working on a very specific sliding technique that allowed her to recover to the center of the court a split second faster. In the world of professional tennis, a split second is the difference between a spectacular winner and a frustrated, unforced error. Alex took to this training with a relentless, almost frightening hunger. She was not just practicing, she was rewriting her own muscle memory. There was a specific moment during a late afternoon session when the air was thick with the smell of sun-baked clay. Nadal walked onto the court, took a racket from his bag, and personally demonstrated the exact weight transfer he wanted to see. The entire crowd went dead silent as they watched the master pass his secrets to the student. It was like watching a king prepare a successor for battle. While she was grinding on the dirt, the digital world was erupting with a different kind of energy. The Filipino-American community has always been the spine of her support system, but this time it felt more intense. It was a movement. They were not just cheering for her. They were fiercely defending her honor. The messages of fire and the blue, red, and yellow of the Philippine flag flooded every corner of the internet. They told her that she never needed to apologize for a loss because her very existence on that stage was already a massive victory for all of them. This collective, global energy seemed to fuel her every move. By the time the main draw was announced, Alex was no longer looking like a vulnerable young player trying to find her way. She looked like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The statistics back up this incredible transformation. Reaching number 45 in the world at the age of 20 is a milestone that puts her in a very elite group of athletes. Most players are still trying to find their rhythm on the junior circuit or the lower-level tournaments at that age, but Alex is already taking sets and matches off Grand Slam champions. She has shown a maturity and a tactical intelligence that usually takes a decade of professional experience to develop. She is playing chess on the court while her opponents are still trying to play checkers. This climb in the rankings is not just about a numerical value, it is about the prestige and the respect that comes with it. It is about a girl from Manila earning her seat at the high table with the giants of the sport. The rise was no longer a distant dream. It was a documented, undeniable reality that the entire WTA Tour had to finally acknowledge. Alex Eala represents something far bigger than a tennis career. She is the spearhead of a brand new era for Asian tennis. For decades, this sport was dominated by a specific geography and a very traditional history. But Alex is rewriting that map with every serve she hits. She is showing every kid on a cracked public court in Quezon City or a suburban club in California that greatness does not have a zip code. She is the living proof that the spirit of a champion can be grown anywhere as long as you have the discipline to nurture it. She has become a lighthouse for a community that has been waiting a long time to see themselves reflected at the highest levels of professional sports. Nadal was not being hyperbolic when he said she lights up everything. It was not a poetic metaphor. It was a literal description of the hope she provides to millions of people. Success in life is not a straight line. It is a messy, difficult, and often painful path filled with setbacks and disappointments like the one she faced in Germany. But the mark of a true legend is not that they never fall down. It is that they refuse to stay down when the world is watching. Alex has shown us that she can take the hits, absorb the criticism, and come back with even more fire in her eyes. She has shown us that she belongs on the biggest stages in the world, not just because of a computer ranking, but because of the iron in her character. As we look toward the rest of this 2026 season, the question is no longer if she will succeed, but how high her ceiling actually is. Many veteran analysts are already predicting a top 10 breakthrough before she even turns 22. With the backing of the greatest clay court player in history and the unconditional love of a global community, there is truly no limit to what she can achieve. Alex Eala is not just a tennis star. She is a symbol of resilience for a generation that desperately needs it. She is the light that refuses to be extinguished by the shadows of doubt. The Madrid Open is finally here, and the world is holding its collective breath to see what this young warrior will do next. We have seen the struggle, we have seen the grueling training, and now we are all ready for the payoff. Do you think Alex will reach the quarterfinals this week? Or do you think she is destined to hold an even bigger trophy before the year is over? We want to know exactly what you think, so tell us your predictions in the comments below. If you want to stay connected to every single step of this historic journey and ensure you never miss an update on the rise of the first true tennis superstar of the Philippines, hit the subscribe button and join our community today. We are just getting started, and you do not want to be the one who missed the moment the world truly changed.